Welcome to my channel. Try to hear the latest story.
We're in Tokyo. Nobody cares about your little graduation dinner. My sister texted. My cousin added, enjoy eating alone, loser. So I pulled every dollar I'd been funding their lives with and watched everything collapse. Sup, Reddit. My family ditched my college graduation dinner to go to Tokyo, then sent me mocking texts about eating alone. So I cut off the money pipeline I'd been funding their lives with for years. What followed was absolute chaos. Buckle up because this gets messy. I'm Kyle, 28 male, and I just finished my MBA from a solid state university. Took me 6 years because I was working full-time while going to school part-time, but I finally did it. GPA of 3.7, zero student debt because I paid as I went, and a promotion waiting for me at the logistics firm where I'd been grinding since I was 22. Not gonna lie, I was proud. Spent 6 years juggling 60-hour work weeks with night classes and weekend study sessions. Missed birthdays, holidays, pretty much every social event you can think of. My friends stopped inviting me places because I was always either at work or in class or studying, but I kept my head down and pushed through because I had goals. The degree was supposed to open doors. My company had already promised me a senior analyst position once I graduated, complete with a 20% raise and actual decision-making authority instead of just running reports for people who barely understood the data I was giving them. My family knew how hard I'd worked for this. They'd watched me spend my 20s living in a cramped studio apartment, driving a car with 200,000 miles on it, eating meal prep chicken and rice 6 days a week, because that's all I could afford while paying tuition out of pocket. When I told them I was graduating in May, I started planning a small celebration dinner. Nothing fancy, just family at a nice restaurant. I made reservations 2 months in advance at this Italian place downtown that had good reviews. Called everyone, got confirmations, even put down a deposit for a private room since there would be about 15 people. My parents, my 2 sisters, my aunt and uncle, 3 cousins, my grandmother. The people who'd supposedly been supporting me through this whole journey. The ones who'd tell people at family gatherings how proud they were that I was bettering myself and making something of my life. 2 weeks before graduation, my sister Natalie, 26 female, mentioned she might not make it. She had this opportunity to go to Japan with her boyfriend. Some last-minute trip he'd planned. I reminded her the graduation dinner had been scheduled for months, and she rolled her eyes and said she'd try to work it out. Natalie's always been the golden child who could do no wrong. Dropped out of community college after 1 semester, bounced between retail jobs and server positions, never held anything longer than 8 months. But according to my parents, she was finding herself and exploring her options, while I was just being too rigid with my life choices. Her boyfriend Trevor was one of those guys who talks about starting businesses, but never actually does anything. Claimed he was an entrepreneur, but as far as I could tell, his main business was spending other people's money while posting motivational quotes on social media. My parents loved him though, said he had vision and drive. A week before graduation, my cousin Blake, 29 male, texted asking if he could bring his new girlfriend to the dinner. I said sure, already paid for extra seats anyway. He responded with, cool, but actually we might not come. Depends on what's going on that weekend. Blake's the family party guy. Never finished college, works as a bartender at some club downtown, lives with his parents rent-free at 29 because he's saving up for something he never specifies. Shows up to family events with a different girl every time, always talking about how he's networking and building connections, when really he's just going out every night and sleeping until 3 p.m. 3 days before graduation, my other sister Melissa, 24 female, called. She wasn't going to make it either. Her roommate was having a crisis and needed her support. When I asked what kind of crisis, she got vague and defensive. Said I was being selfish by expecting her to drop everything for a dinner when her friend really needed her right now. Melissa's whole personality is being there for everyone except the people who've actually been there for her. She'll cancel family plans to help some friend she met 3 weeks ago move apartments. But when I needed help moving after working a 12-hour shift, she was too busy. According to her, I'm just not as emotionally available as her other relationships. The night before graduation, I got a group text from Natalie. Hey everyone, quick update. We're in Tokyo. Trevor surprised me with tickets and we couldn't pass it up. Trip of a lifetime. Sorry about tomorrow, but you understand. Have fun at your little dinner thing. Attached was a photo. The whole family. All of them. Standing in front of the famous Shibuya crossing like they were filming a tourism commercial. My parents, both sisters, Blake, his new girlfriend, my aunt and uncle, even my grandmother who claimed she had a doctor's appointment and couldn't travel. 15 people who'd confirmed they'd be at my graduation dinner were instead posing in matching berets and scarves in front of French landmarks. They'd planned an entire international trip, coordinated schedules, bought plane tickets, booked hotels, and managed to keep it secret from me for weeks. The caption on the photo? Finally together. Family first. My phone started blowing up with texts from the group chat. Blake added, "Enjoy eating alone, loser. This is what real success looks like." Natalie chimed in, "We're in Tokyo. Nobody cares about your little graduation dinner. Grow up." My mom sent a separate text. "Don't be dramatic. We'll celebrate when we get back. You understand that opportunities like this don't come around often." I sat there staring at my phone for probably 20 minutes. Didn't cry, didn't rage, just processed what was happening. These people who'd spent years telling me how proud they were, who'd bragged about me to their friends, who'd supposedly supported my educational journey, had collectively decided that a vacation was more important than showing up for me. The dinner was the next day at 6 p.m. I'd paid a $500 deposit for the private room. The reservation was for 15 people. I called the restaurant and canceled everything. Lost the deposit, but whatever. Then I spent graduation day exactly how I spent most of my 20s. Working. Had a project deadline coming up, and sitting around feeling sorry for myself wasn't going to hit those targets. My manager found out what happened when he asked why I looked miserable after walking across the stage that morning. I told him my family was in Tokyo instead of at my graduation dinner. He took me out for steaks that night, told me his family had pulled similar stuff, and gave me some advice that stuck with me. Family's supposed to show up. When they don't, you remember it. And when they need something from you later, you remember it then too. The thing is, I'd been doing more than just working hard and going to school. I'd also been bankrolling my family's lifestyle for the past 4 years. And they had no idea how much. See, I'm good with money. Always have been. While everyone else was spending their paychecks on whatever they wanted, I was running spreadsheets and building budgets and tracking every dollar. When I started making decent money at the logistics firm, I got smart about investing, building an emergency fund, and creating passive income streams. By the time I was 25, I was pulling in about $90,000 a year between my salary and side investments. Not rich, but comfortable enough that when family asked for help, I usually said yes. Started small. My parents needed help with property taxes one year. $1,500. They'd pay me back once Dad's commission check came through. Never did, but whatever. Family helps family, right? Then Natalie's car broke down. Needed a new transmission. $2,800. She promised to pay me back in installments. Made one payment of $200, then stopped responding when I asked about the rest. Melissa needed help with rent during a rough patch between jobs. 6 months of rent payments at $900 per month. She was supposed to pay me back once she got stable. That was 2 years ago. Still waiting. Blake's car got repossessed because he stopped making payments. I loaned him $3,500 to get it back. He told everyone I'd helped him out, but never mentioned the loan part. When I brought it up at Christmas, he acted like I was being petty about money between family. My parents' air conditioner died during a heat wave. I paid for a new HVAC system, $5,500. Dad said he'd pay me back in monthly installments. Made 2 payments, then told me he was restructuring his finances and would resume payments once things stabilized. That was 18 months ago. The pattern was clear. They'd ask for help, I'd provide it, they'd promise to pay me back, then act like I was the jerk for expecting repayment. And because I was making good money and living below my means, they assumed I didn't need it back. But I'd been keeping records. Every loan, every payment, every promise. Had it all documented in a spreadsheet with dates, amounts, and terms. Not because I was planning anything, just because that's how I operate. Track everything. Trust the data. Sitting in my apartment the night of my graduation, eating leftover Chinese food, and looking at photos of my family in Tokyo, I pulled up that spreadsheet. Wanted to see exactly how much I'd funded their lives while they couldn't be bothered to show up for mine. The number was staggering. Over 4 years, I'd loaned or given my family $48,000. Some of it was official loans with promises of repayment. Some was gifts that I'd been guilted into not expecting back. Some was me covering expenses they couldn't handle because their financial planning sucked. My parents owed me $12,000. Natalie owed me $8,000. Melissa owed me $6,000. Blake owed me $5,000. My aunt and uncle had borrowed $4,000 for their daughter's wedding and never paid it back. Even my grandmother owed me $1,500 from when she needed help with medical bills. $48,000. That's what it cost to be the responsible one. The one with the job and the savings and the good credit. The one who could be counted on when everyone else screwed up. The Bank of Kyle, always open. Apparently never expecting any returns. And where was that money now? Paying for their Tokyo vacation while I ate cold noodles alone in my apartment. The rage that hit me wasn't explosive. It was cold and calculating. Started thinking about exactly how much of their current lifestyle depended on me continuing to be the family ATM. Natalie's car that I'd fixed? She couldn't afford the insurance without my help. Had been covering her premiums for 8 months because she claimed the payments were too high after her boyfriend lost his job. $270 a month going to keep her insured on a car I'd already paid to repair. My parents' house? They'd refinanced twice and were underwater on the mortgage. I'd been covering their property tax payments for 2 years because they couldn't afford both the mortgage and the taxes. $2,400 a year so they wouldn't lose their house. Melissa's apartment? I was guarantor on her lease because she had terrible credit from unpaid credit card bills. She'd already missed rent twice this year, and the landlord had called me both times. I'd paid it to avoid getting my credit screwed because my name was on the paperwork. Blake's car insurance? Canceled after a DUI last year. Couldn't get coverage anywhere affordable. I'd added him to my policy as an occasional driver and been covering the difference. $140 a month to keep him legal. My aunt and uncle's daughter was in college. Private school, crazy expensive. They'd borrowed money from me for her first semester and never paid it back. Then had the audacity to ask if I'd help with her second year. I'd said no, but they'd gotten my parents to guilt trip me into investing in family education. Ended up covering $3,500 in tuition. I'd been so focused on being the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who could be counted on, that I'd become the one who got used. And they knew it. They knew exactly what they were doing. The group chat from Tokyo kept buzzing all weekend. Photos of them at temples, restaurants, street markets. Natalie posted a picture of her and Trevor at a traditional tea ceremony with a caption about living our best lives. Blake posted a video of everyone doing a toast at some fancy restaurant with the caption, "Family Goals." Not one person asked how graduation went. Not one person apologized for missing it. Not one person acknowledged that maybe, just maybe, planning a family vacation on the same weekend as my graduation dinner was kind of messed up. Sunday night, my mom sent me a text. "Hope you had a nice weekend. We'll do something for your graduation when we get back. Love you." Like she was doing me a favor. Like showing up a month late with some gas station flowers would make up for the coordinated abandonment. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't going to yell or argue or make a scene. I was just going to stop. Stop being the bank. Stop being the safety net. Stop funding their lives while they treated me like an afterthought. Monday morning, I called my insurance company and removed Blake from my policy. The agent asked if I was sure, and I said absolutely. He'd need to find his own coverage by the end of the month. Then I called Natalie's insurance company and canceled the payment method. She'd get a notice that her policy was about to lapse. Could set up her own payments if she wanted to keep coverage. Called my parents' mortgage company and removed my authorization to make tax payments on their behalf. They'd need to handle it themselves going forward. Contacted Melissa's landlord and requested my name be removed as guarantor. There was a process for that, but I started the paperwork. She'd need to qualify on her own or find a new guarantor. Then I sent a single text to the family group chat. Effective immediately, I'm no longer providing financial assistance to anyone. All outstanding loans are due within 30 days. After that, I'll be pursuing collections. Thanks for the Tokyo photos. Looked like fun. Turned my phone off and went to work. Had reports to run and analysis to complete. The promotion was official now, and I had responsibilities. Didn't turn my phone back on until Wednesday. When I did, there were 83 missed calls and over 200 text messages. The messages were a journey. Started with confusion, moved to anger, landed on panic, then circled back to guilt tripping. Blake. "Dude, what's going on? You can't just kick me off your insurance. I'll get arrested if I'm driving uninsured." Natalie. "You're seriously canceling my insurance? Over a vacation? You're psychotic." My mom. "We need to talk about this immediately. You're making rash decisions over hurt feelings." Melissa. "The landlord called me about the guarantor thing. You're really going to screw me over? Where am I supposed to live?" My dad. "This is unacceptable. We're family. You don't just cut off family because you're upset about one thing." My aunt. "Very disappointed in you. Family supports each other through thick and thin. The entitlement was breathtaking. Not one apology, not one acknowledgement of what they'd done. Just immediate outrage that I'd stopped funding their lives. My mom called 17 times. I didn't answer. She left voicemails that started calm and progressively got more frantic. The last one was her crying about how I was destroying the family and being selfish and throwing away relationships over money. Threw away relationships over money. They'd thrown away my graduation over a vacation, but somehow I was the one destroying relationships. Wednesday night, my parents showed up at my apartment. They'd just gotten back from Tokyo, and instead of unpacking or resting, they came straight to my place to confront me. My dad hammered on the door like he was trying to break it down. I let them in because I knew they weren't leaving until we talked. "What's this about?" Dad demanded, not even bothering with hello. "You can't just cut everyone off like this." "I didn't cut anyone off," I said calmly. "I stopped subsidizing your lives. There's a difference." "We're family," my mom said. "Family helps each other." "Exactly," I replied. "Family helps each other." "So where was my family on Saturday?" They both got quiet for a second. Then Dad started in about how the Tokyo trip was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that they couldn't pass up. Trevor had gotten some kind of deal on tickets and hotels, and everyone had contributed to make it happen. It was spontaneous and exciting, and they thought I'd understand. "You knew about my graduation for 6 months," I said. "You confirmed you'd be at the dinner. Then you planned a vacation for the exact same weekend and didn't tell me until the night before." We didn't want to upset you," my mom explained, like that made it better. "We thought it would be easier if we just went and celebrated with you later." "How much did Tokyo cost?" I asked. They exchanged looks. Dad finally said it was about $2,000 per person for flights, hotels, and expenses. 15 people. $30,000 total spent on a vacation to avoid coming to my graduation dinner. "And you're currently 2 years behind on property taxes," I said. "The ones I've been paying because you can't afford them. But you can afford a $2,000 trip to Tokyo." "That's different," Dad argued. "The trip was a one-time thing. The taxes are an ongoing expense." "Right, and my ongoing expense has been funding your lifestyle while you treat me like an inconvenience." I showed them the spreadsheet. Every loan, every payment, every broken promise. $48,000 over 4 years. They stared at the numbers like they were seeing them for the first time. "Some of those were gifts," my mom protested. "You said we didn't have to pay you back." "I said that after you guilt-tripped me for asking," I corrected. "There's a difference between giving a gift and being told that expecting repayment makes me a bad son." Dad tried the authority approach, said I was being childish and petty, said real men don't keep score in families, said I was letting hurt feelings cloud my judgment. "You're right," I agreed. "Real men don't keep score. They also don't ditch their son's graduation for a vacation and then act like he's wrong for being upset about it." My mom started crying, said I was tearing the family apart, said money shouldn't come between us, said she raised me better than this. "You raised me to be responsible and reliable," I said. "That's what I'm being. Responsible with my money, reliable in my boundaries. You just don't like it because I'm not responsible for your problems anymore." They left after an hour of circular arguments. Before walking out, Dad told me I'd regret this decision. That family was more important than money, and someday I'd need them and they wouldn't be there. I told him that was fine. They'd already proven they wouldn't be there anyway. The next week was brutal. Every family member called to tell me I was wrong. My aunt said I was being cruel. My uncle said I was holding grudges. My grandmother called to say she was disappointed in me for valuing money over relationships. Blake showed up at my apartment demanding I reinstate his insurance. When I said no, he tried to intimidate me with his height and build. I reminded him I had cameras and assault charges stick. He left. Natalie sent long text messages about how I'd always been jealous of her and Trevor, how I was bitter because I'd spent my 20s working instead of living, how I was punishing her for being happy. She never once mentioned missing my graduation. Melissa tried the sympathy approach, said she couldn't afford rent without my help and would end up homeless. I suggested she get a roommate or find a cheaper place. She called me heartless. My parents started telling extended family that I'd abandoned them over a misunderstanding about a dinner. Made it sound like I'd overreacted to a simple scheduling conflict. Conveniently left out the part where they'd planned an international vacation to actively avoid my graduation. I let them talk. Didn't defend myself. Didn't explain. The people who mattered knew the truth. 2 weeks after cutting them off, the consequences started hitting. Blake's car got impounded for driving without insurance. Cost him $800 in fees and fines to get it back. He called screaming about how it was my fault. I reminded him he'd had a month to get his own coverage. Natalie's insurance lapsed. She got pulled over for a broken taillight and got cited for no insurance. Had to go to court, pay fines, and provide proof of coverage. She sent me a picture of the ticket with a message. "Hope you're happy." My parents got a notice from the county about unpaid property taxes. They'd be facing liens and potential foreclosure proceedings if they didn't pay within 60 days. They called demanding I fix it. I declined. Melissa's landlord refused to renew her lease without a guarantor. She had to move in with friends, splitting rent 3 ways in a 1-bedroom apartment. She posted on social media about how family betrayal had forced her into a terrible living situation. The family group chat turned into a support group for people dealing with the fallout of my boundaries. They'd post about their struggles and blame me. Acted like I'd caused their problems, instead of just stopping to prevent them. My mom posted on social media about difficult family situations and the pain of unconditional love. Got a lot of sympathy comments from people who had no idea what she was talking about. She never mentioned Tokyo or my graduation, just positioned herself as a suffering mother dealing with a difficult child. I blocked most of them on social media. Didn't need to see their version of events. 3 weeks in, my uncle called with a different approach. He wanted to mediate. Thought maybe we could all sit down and talk through this rationally. I agreed to meet him for coffee. He showed up with a printed agenda, had bullet points about family unity and forgiveness, and moving forward. I let him present his whole case. When he finished, I asked him one question. If this was your son's graduation, and your family planned a vacation the same weekend and didn't tell you until the night before, how would you feel? He got quiet. Finally said he'd probably be upset but would try to understand that things happen, and people make mistakes. It wasn't a mistake, I said. It was a choice. They chose to plan a trip, book flights, coordinate schedules, and spend $30,000 to avoid being at my graduation. That's not a mistake. That's a statement about priorities. He tried to argue that maybe they didn't realize the dates conflicted. I pulled up Natalie's text messages from 3 months earlier, where she'd confirmed she'd be at the dinner, and was so proud of me for finishing school. He had no response to that. Here's the thing, I told him. I don't care if they apologize. I don't care if they explain. I'm done being the family bank. They can fund their own lives from now on. He asked about the money they owed me. I said they had 30 days to pay, or I'd pursue collections. He looked shocked that I was serious. You'd really take your own family to court over money? No, I corrected. I'd take people who borrowed money and refused to pay it back to court. The fact that they're related to me just makes their theft more disappointing. We didn't meet again after that. Week 4, my mom called from a different number. I answered because I didn't recognize it. She begged me to help with the property taxes. They'd tried to set up a payment plan with the county, but were denied because of previous late payments. They needed $9,000 by the end of the month, or they'd start foreclosure proceedings. We'll lose the house, she pleaded. Where are we supposed to go? I don't know, I said honestly. But it's not my problem to solve anymore. How can you be so cold? How could you miss my graduation for a vacation? She didn't have an answer. Just kept crying about the house and how I was letting them become homeless over pride. I'm not letting you do anything, I said. You made choices. You chose Tokyo over my graduation. You chose to spend $2,000 per person on a vacation instead of prioritizing your property taxes. You chose to borrow money from me and never pay it back. These are all your choices. I'm just no longer shielding you from the consequences. She hung up. My dad called an hour later. Different approach. He was sorry. They shouldn't have missed my graduation. It was wrong, and he understood why I was upset. Could we please work something out? They'd pay me back, set up a real payment plan this time, whatever I needed. Just please help them save the house. How much of the Tokyo trip can you get refunded? I asked. What? The Tokyo trip. How much can you get back? Hotels, tours, any prepaid expenses? We can't get refunds. Everything's already been used. Right. So you spent $30,000 on a vacation and can't get any of it back. But you want me to give you $9,000 to save your house. We'll pay you back. Like you paid back the other $12,000 you owe me? He got quiet, then tried anger. Said I was being vindictive and punishing them for one mistake. Said real family forgives. Real family shows up? I said. You didn't. Now deal with it. I hung up and blocked his new number too. Week 5, things got nasty. Blake posted on social media about how I'd abandoned the family in their time of need. Made it sound like they were facing some tragedy, and I'd refused to help. Got a lot of supportive comments from people who didn't know the real story. Several mutual friends reached out asking if I was okay and what was going on. I didn't explain. Just said I'd set boundaries with family, and some people weren't happy about it. Let them think what they wanted. Natalie started a campaign to paint me as the villain, posted vague things about toxic family members, and people who value money over relationships. Her friends commented with support. She never mentioned the graduation or Tokyo, just positioned herself as the victim of my cruelty. My parents' friends from church started calling me. They'd heard the family was going through difficulties and wanted to offer support. I politely declined and said I was no longer involved in their financial situation. One of them, an older woman named Patricia, was more direct. Asked me point blank what was happening. I told her the abbreviated version. They'd missed my graduation for a vacation, I'd stopped funding their lifestyle, now they were facing consequences. She was quiet for a long minute, then said, "That seems fair. They made their choice." Turned out Patricia's son had gone through something similar. His family had missed his wedding for a golf trip. He'd cut them off financially, and she'd supported his decision. She promised not to share the details with anyone, but said she thought I was doing the right thing. It was the first time any adult had validated my decision. Week 6, the collection notices started going out. I'd warned them, 30 days to pay, or I'd pursue collections. 30 days came and went with zero payment from anyone, so I filed. Small claims court for amounts under $10,000. Regular civil court for my parents' larger debt. Sent the paperwork certified mail so they couldn't claim they didn't receive it. Had all my documentation ready, loan agreements, text messages confirming amounts owed, payment records showing I'd been covering their expenses. The outrage was nuclear. My entire extended family got involved. Called me heartless, cruel, vindictive. Said I was destroying the family over money. Said they couldn't believe I'd actually take my own parents to court. I reminded them that my parents had borrowed $12,000 and refused to pay it back. That was theft, not a family disagreement. Blake threatened to teach me a lesson about family loyalty. I forwarded his threatening text to the police and filed a report. He got a visit from officers telling him to leave me alone. Natalie called me sobbing, begging me to drop the lawsuits. Said this would ruin their credit and make it impossible to recover financially. I pointed out that not paying back money you borrowed ruins your credit anyway. The lawsuit was just making it official. My mom left a voicemail saying I was dead to her, that she had no son, that she'd never forgive me for this betrayal. I saved the voicemail. Might need it later. The court dates got scheduled. 3 separate hearings across 2 months. My parents tried to get a lawyer but couldn't afford one. They'd have to represent themselves. Meanwhile, I hired an attorney. Cost me $4,000, but I wanted this done right. She reviewed all my documentation and said I had an airtight case. They'd borrowed money, signed agreements, even informal text agreements counted, and refused to pay. Basic contract law. Week 8, my parents lost their house. The county foreclosure went through. They had to be out in 30 days. They moved in with my aunt and uncle. 5 people in a 3-bedroom house. My aunt's Facebook posts got passive-aggressive about unexpected guests and sacrifices for family. Natalie moved back in with them too after her boyfriend dumped her. Apparently Trevor's spontaneous Tokyo trip had been funded by credit cards he couldn't pay off. He'd been fired from his job for missing too much work because he was in Tokyo. The relationship imploded under financial stress. So now there were 6 adults crammed into my aunt's house, all blaming me for their situation. Melissa lost her apartment and moved in with a friend, sleeping on a couch. Posted sad photos on Instagram about her minimalist lifestyle and learning to appreciate small spaces. Her followers ate it up, not knowing she was there because she couldn't afford rent. Blake was living in his car after getting evicted for unpaid rent. He'd been spending his money on going out instead of rent, assuming I'd bail him out like always. When I didn't, his landlord followed through on eviction. He posted pictures of sunrises from his car, with captions about freedom and unconventional living. The family implosion was complete, and it had only taken 8 weeks without my financial support. Week 10, the first court date arrived. My parents showed up looking defeated, wearing clothes that hadn't been ironed, driving my aunt's car because theirs had been repossessed. The judge reviewed my documentation. I had everything: loan agreements via text message, bank records showing I'd transferred money, messages where they'd promised to pay me back, records of me asking for payment, and them refusing or ignoring me. My dad tried to argue that family loans were different from regular loans, that there was an understanding of flexibility and grace periods. The judge asked if they'd made any effort to pay me back. My dad admitted they hadn't. So you borrowed $12,000, promised to repay it, made 0 payments, and you're arguing that you shouldn't have to pay because you're related to the plaintiff? It's more complicated than that, my dad said weakly. It's actually very simple, the judge replied. You borrowed money. You didn't pay it back. That's the definition of debt. Judgment in my favor. $12,000 plus court costs and interest. My parents had 30 days to pay, or I could pursue wage garnishment. They didn't say a word to me as they left the courthouse. The second hearing for Natalie went the same way. She tried to claim the car repairs were a gift. I showed text messages where she'd explicitly said, "I'll pay you back in installments." Judgment for 8,000 plus costs. Blake's hearing was almost funny. He showed up unprepared, tried to charm the judge with stories about family dynamics and misunderstandings. The judge was not charmed. Judgment for 5,000 plus costs. Melissa didn't show up to her hearing. Automatic judgment in my favor for 6,000 plus costs. Total judgments, $31,000. Still less than they actually owed me, but it was what I could prove in court. The wage garnishments started within weeks. My dad's commission checks got garnished. Natalie's paychecks got garnished. Blake's bar wages got garnished. Even Melissa's income got garnished once she started working again. They'd be paying me back for years. The family fractured completely. Half blamed me for being heartless. Half quietly admitted I'd been taken advantage of. Nobody talked to anybody else without it turning into arguments about whose fault this was. Christmas came and went. I wasn't invited to anything. Spent it with friends instead, ate good food, exchanged gifts with people who actually valued me. Best Christmas I'd had in years. My promotion came through at work. Senior analyst position, 20% raise, actual authority. Used part of the raise to buy myself a new car. Nothing fancy, just reliable transportation that wasn't held together with duct tape and hope. Opened a savings account just for the garnished wages. Every month, money showed up from the court-ordered payments. Watching that balance grow was satisfying in a way I can't fully explain. 6 months after my graduation, I got a letter in the mail. From my grandmother, the only family member who hadn't gotten involved in the mess. She wrote that she was sorry for missing my graduation, that she'd been pressured to go on the Tokyo trip and had felt uncomfortable saying no, that she understood why I'd cut everyone off and didn't blame me, that she hoped someday I'd be willing to talk to her again, but she understood if I wasn't ready. She also included a check for $1,500, the medical bills I'd helped her with, fully repaid with a year of interest. I called her that night. We talked for 2 hours. She told me the truth about Tokyo. It had been planned specifically to avoid my graduation. My mom had convinced everyone that I was too serious about school and needed to learn that life happens, and couldn't expect everyone to revolve around a schedule. The trip was meant to teach me a lesson about not being the center of attention, about understanding that other people's lives and experiences mattered too, about not being so rigid with expectations. They'd literally planned an international vacation as a punishment for expecting my family to show up to my graduation. My grandmother had gone along because she was afraid of being excluded from future events, but she'd felt sick about it the whole time. Said the photos they posted were fake happiness. Everyone had been uncomfortable, but nobody wanted to be the first to admit it. They thought you'd just accept it, she said, like you always did. They didn't think you'd actually walk away. I didn't walk away, I corrected. They pushed me away. I just stopped pushing back. She agreed. Said she was proud of me for setting boundaries. Said she wished she'd taught her daughter to be more like me instead of enabling the behavior that led to this mess. We stayed in touch after that. Met for lunch every few weeks. She was the only family member I maintained contact with. A year after my graduation, my mom sent me a letter. Not an email or text, but an actual handwritten letter. She apologized. Said they'd made a terrible mistake with Tokyo, that they'd been wrong to miss my graduation, that she understood why I'd cut them off and didn't expect forgiveness. She just wanted me to know that she was sorry. She explained that they'd lost everything. The house, the cars, their savings. They were living in a small apartment now. My parents and Natalie splitting a 2-bedroom. My dad was working 2 jobs to make ends meet and pay off the court judgments. Natalie was working retail again. They were barely surviving. She didn't ask for help. Just said she hoped someday I'd be willing to talk to them again. That she loved me and always would, even though she'd failed to show it when it mattered. I read the letter 3 times. Didn't respond. Sometimes that's the best you can do. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.